Today's episode has been brought to you by Schedulicity.
Welcome to episode 77 of the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast. Today we hear from Helena Spears, who has been using yoga for about 5 years to deal with persistent pain caused by chronic illness. Helena tells us what her experience is like living with interstitial cystitis and how that has motivated her to become a yoga teacher who is now helping others who are dealing with chronic pelvic pain. At the end of my interview with Helena, I will be wrapping up with some more information on interstitial cystitis, or IC. You don't have to worry about taking notes though. I've compiled a printable PDF for you, and you can find that at theconnectedyogateacher.com/77. For those of you on our email list, I will be sending you a link via email. So this is a great reason to go to our homepage, theconnectedyogateacher.com. You can pause the podcast right now and sign up for our email list if you haven't already. Also, we have an amazing giveaway worth over $300 that I will be telling you about at the end of the interview with Helena, because it's going to make a lot more sense at the end of the interview. Returning listeners, thanks for hanging out. If you are new here, let me introduce myself. My name is Shannon Crow. I'm a mother of 3, a yoga teacher, and a consultant for yoga teachers. I get it. I get how isolating it can feel as a yoga teacher and especially as an entrepreneur. And if you are running a yoga business, you know what this really means. It's not all about doing and sharing yoga. A lot of it is working as an entrepreneur in your business. I truly believe that when yoga teachers create a sustainable business, the result is that we have more consistent yoga out in the world. I want to see yoga teachers generating profit so that they can have a sustainable yoga business where they invest time into teaching and their own continued education, and they're able to bring profit into their household as well as giving to charities and organizations who they really feel is also in line with their yoga values. So I think it is such an amazing thing to be able to reach out to you, the yoga entrepreneur, and to help in some way to see if I can, connect you with information, ideas, a supportive community. And that is what the Connected Yoga Teacher is all about. If you haven't found our supportive community on Facebook, come and join us. You can go to theconnectedyogateacher.com and look for the join button on our homepage, or follow the links in our show notes. As of today, we have over 3,500 yoga teachers in that group from around the world. This week, some great threads of discussion were in there. Jolene was asking about yoga mats. Nick shared a really helpful article about yoga for Parkinson's. Bree asked about yoga mentor programs, and Fiona shared a beautiful way that she ended her children's yoga class that worked out really well. So there's lots in there. The rules are that we're supporting each other as professional yoga teachers. Thank you to all of you who are already in that group, commenting, sharing, asking questions. It is through this group that I actually met Helena. Before we meet Helena, let's hear from Shayna over at Schedulicity.
Now the Schedulicity hot tip of the week. Save time with our super fast check-in. Schedulicity keeps track of anyone you've added to your class roster, as well as anyone who's booked online. Then, as they walk in the door, all you need to do is find them on the roster and hit the check mark next to their name. New students will be marked with a star, so you don't have to try to remember who's already filled out your new student paperwork. With the payment add-on that works with Square and Stripe, you'll see if your students have already paid you online. If you have walk-ins that didn't book online, it's super easy to add them as a client, or if they're already in your system, just find their name. Save yourself some time and energy. Check in with Schedulicity.
Thank you, Shayna, and to everyone working at Schedulicity so that people like me can easily go to my website, add a button where other people can go and click to book a yoga class, training, workshop, podcast interview, a consultation call. So Schedulicity, you make my life easier in so many ways. And I love your team over there. So thank you for sponsoring the podcast. Let's dive in and meet Helena. Helena Spears is an MRI technician and a yoga teacher. She's from British Columbia, Canada. She's been dealing with chronic illness and pain since she was a teenager. Helena talked about having AS, which is also known as Ankylosing Spondylitis. Oh my gosh, you guys, that one's a hard one for me. Fibromyalgia and Interstitial Cystitis. She talks about how yoga offers her some relief and how that led her to working with others who are dealing with persistent pain, specifically pelvic pain. Helena likes to spend time with her fur baby and her husband. You might find her out walking, biking, and taking photos. I wanted to read you some exact words from Helena's website because I love them. Here's what she says. I decided to pursue my yoga teacher training out of frustration and curiosity. I was frustrated that quote-unquote regular yoga practice seemed to flare my fibromyalgia, yet I knew that yoga could be the key to helping heal my overactive nervous system and dialing down my pain. Since completing my yoga teacher training, my practice has deepened in a way I never thought possible. The emotional healing and guidance I have received from studying the sutras and yogic philosophy inform my life and practice every day. Through meditation, I have learned to tap into the calm part of my soul. Pranayama allows me to quickly tap into that inner calm. So I'm so excited to welcome Helena to the podcast today. I feel like after talking with her, I was really inspired. If you know someone who is dealing with persistent pain, maybe it's persistent pelvic pain or otherwise, I would highly recommend sending this podcast along to them. And for those of you dealing with persistent pain yourselves, I'm so glad that you get to hear from someone who I think is just a gift to this world. Welcome to the Connected Yoga Teacher podcast, Helena. It's so great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Shannon. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I am really curious. I'm feeling like I have so many questions, so I don't know where to begin, but let's begin with your yoga journey. What first brought you to yoga?
My yoga journey has been a very slow uptake of yoga. I went as a teen to some community classes. I injured my back, cliff jumping. And so I was doing, yoga for back care with Rodney Yee, his DVD, those types of things for a really long time. Then I have a long history of chronic illness and pain besides my interstitial cystitis. And so I eventually connected to Neil Pearson, and he does yoga for chronic pain. And I went to one of his 3-day workshops, and that really set me more on my yogic path. And I actually had quite a bit of a hard time finding a teacher to work with. A lot of the yoga that is in my area is, it's vinyasa, it's flow, it's moving quite quickly. It's not geared for people who have muscle pain and chronic problems. And I felt like I was, finding a square peg in a round hole. I just wasn't fitting. And so I just decided to do my 200 hours so that I could learn more on my own and explore in that way. And I just think that doing my training has been really helpful for me to even have confidence following along with like online videos and knowing what people are talking about and just having a deeper understanding of it. And it's been a lot of hard work and dedication. And now I have almost a daily practice. Every morning I'm doing yoga. And it's taken me a lot of work and effort to get there.
That's inspiring to me. I always say this on the podcast that I fall away from my everyday yoga practice and then I come back to it with like, oh yeah, I'm going to do that. So that's very inspiring to hear that. And also I love that you acknowledge that it's hard work. It's not easy.
Absolutely. And especially I found that for me, I have to do it in the morning If I don't get my practice in right away, then I'm distracted doing other things, and then at the end of the day, I'm exhausted. I just don't even have the willpower to make myself get off the couch, go down to my room and put my legs up the wall. I'm just done.
Right.
So I get up at 5 a.m. when I work at 8 o'clock, and I do an hour, and then I walk the dog, eat breakfast, go to work. And that's what works.
And so when you say that's what works, is that what helps you with your chronic pain that you deal with? So tell us a bit about the chronic pain that you are dealing with, first of all.
Okay, I'm going to try and keep it brief. I have, like I said, in about early 2000s, I had a little bit of a cliff jumping incident. And at the time, unbeknownst to me, I actually fractured my spine in one level. It's just a little wedge fracture, but I had a lot of really bad soft tissue damage. And I was a very foolish young woman traveling around Europe, and it did not heal well. It was not a great situation. And so I've had back pain since then. And along the way, I've also been diagnosed with ankylosing spondylitis. Well, I'm just going to refer to that as AS. And that is a type of inflammatory arthritis that affects the spine. And it can also affect the large joints of the body. So I am fortunate enough not to have any fusion in my spine. That is what happens eventually. They call it the bamboo spine. And they caught it early on me, and through medication, I have been able to avoid that. So that for me, the main symptoms I get from that is fatigue.
Right.
And then I was also diagnosed with fibromyalgia. And so that, for me, manifests itself in a lot of muscle pain, muscle tension, fatigue, headaches, migraines, that kind of thing. I also have interstitial cystitis, which I have been diagnosed of since I was a teen. And so that is a condition of the bladder. And I'm just going to read you guys the definition here, because it's quite an interesting definition that I was reading on the other day, because it's different than what I would tell people. So the IC Network calls it an unpleasant sensation, pain, pressure, discomfort perceived to be related to the urinary bladder, associated with lower urinary tract symptoms of more than 6 weeks in duration in the absence of infection or other identifiable causes. So it's really just pain or discomfort in the bladder. And there are 5 different subsets that they are identifying. When I was first diagnosed as a teen, none of this was available. So there's 5 different types. There's Hunner's lesions. Now, this is where the lining of the bladder, you basically have an ulcer in your bladder. And it is extremely painful, and it requires surgery to go in and cauterize them. They require a very strict low-acid diet and very special treatments. This is one of the hardest types of IC to have, and it also has been linked to a viral infection. And so then the next type is a bladder wall injury. So this is often starts after a UTI, chemotherapy, bad diet, chemical exposure. It can be a result of use of ketamine. And the next type here is a pelvic floor injury. So, having a baby, trauma to the pelvic floor, sexual assault, the muscles become very tight. They malfunction, and they tighten around the bladder, the nerves, and the blood vessels. And it can actually cause quite a lot of referral pain up into the pelvis as well. And then there's also pudendal neuralgia, which is where the pelvic floor is so tight that it is pressing on the nerve.
Right.
And a lot of high athletes get this, like bike riders, that kind of thing. And then the fifth type, which is where I fall in, is a multiple pain disorder in a functional somatic syndrome. So they struggle with more than just IC, like IBS, vulvodynia, prostodynia, fibromyalgia, neurosensitivity, IBD, like inflammatory bowel disease, arthritis. So yeah, I'm definitely in that category. So that's why I wanted to go through all these different types of IC, because each person who has it is so different. I'm part of an online community, and what works for one person may have absolutely no effect for another person. So each person is very individual. It's actually to me, it's really interesting to hear what other people are doing. And I sometimes, think, oh, I would never do that, but it works for them. Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that because we always know, like, every person is an individual. What works for one person doesn't always work for another. But often I think when you have something, you're like, well, this works for me. Then we just think, okay, I'm being helpful and I'm offering this out to someone else, but it's not necessarily the case.
Absolutely. Completely. And it's funny that you mentioned that, because it's easy for others to give advice, and it's really frustrating with IC. A lot of the advice that is out there is really the opposite of what you want to hear. So people with a weakened bladder lining, like, they have to have a low acid diet. So when people hear you're having problems with their bladder, the first thing people say, oh, have you drank cranberry juice or these types of things, right? And no, that is not what you want to do when you have, it's like having an open wound. Like, say you skin your knuckle and you get lemon juice in it. It hurts.
Right.
That's what that's like.
And that's the confusion of people saying, well, if it's a UTI, like an urinary tract infection, then it's cranberry juice. And so they're thinking, oh, bladder, that must be what it is. And I think a lot of people just don't even know about interstitial cystitis. So the other thing, and I asked you right before our call, is I've heard it also referred to as painful bladder syndrome. But do you want to tell me your take on that?
Yeah. So as I was saying, if you meet women who have IC, almost no one refers to themselves as I have painful bladder syndrome. I don't know anyone who does, really. Most women have been told by their doctors, you have interstitial cystitis, so that's why they identify that way. But with these new 5 subtypes that I was just telling you guys about, I think that there is going to start to be a differentiation between those with bladder wall injury and people who have pelvic floor dysfunction and central nervous system sensitization problems. Yeah. I really think that that's going to start happening more. Because the treatments that you're doing for both those problems are very, very different.
Right, because you said surgery is the one for the first one, and obviously surgery is not for the other ones. Like, it wouldn't be for something like you have.
They would be nothing surgically that they would be able to offer me that would make a difference.
So what are the symptoms that you experience with IC?
So because I have fairly severe pelvic floor dysfunction, I have a lot of just generalized pain from my rectum up to my bladder and referring to my right. I have a lot of problems on the right side of my pelvic floor. I get a lot of urgency and almost like a pressure right on top of my bladder, so right on top of the pubic symphysis. I sometimes even have muscle spasms of the whole pelvic floor, and it's like a spasm that arises from the rectum and it goes on either side of my vagina and up to my bladder. For me, my pelvic pain is directly related to my stress. So if I'm feeling anxious about something, often my mind won't even be aware, but my pelvic floor will be in spasm. And so then I'll go, oh, I'm stressed out about something. What is it? And when I clear out the thing I'm stressed about, then my pelvic floor calms down.
What an amazing awareness.
It is pretty interesting. Yesterday, I was out on a walk and I was listening to the pelvic care podcast. I think that's what it was called.
Pelvic Health podcast, something.
That's it.
Yeah, I love that
and
one.
They were talking about constipation, and it's just a trigger for me. And my whole pelvic floor went into spasm, and I just thought, I can't listen to this. I turned it off, and I put on some music, and I sat for a minute and did some stretches and some calming breaths, and I carried on my walk, and my pelvic floor stopped spasming.
How amazing. And I love that you shared this example, because it's not always something like, oh, it's tax season. Like, it was something that you were listening to and it was triggering.
Yeah, it's the mind to body link for me is, I feel like almost I have like a dysfunction with it because it's so extreme. And it's not just with my pelvic floor, it's with all of my back pain and body pain as well. So if I'm stressed, it just kind of travels around my body and affects me in different ways. I have a lot of pain in between my shoulder blades as well. And it's taken me a long time to train myself not to be guarding and tense. And that's why the yoga has been so helpful for me, because it's almost like when I've been doing my practice, I'm creating like a somatic link between my mind and my body. And it's taken time to build it. So when I first started doing the relaxation yoga from Neil Pearson, maybe at the end of the 40 minutes, I would be in a relaxed state. And now it only takes me 5 minutes. So it's building a mind to body connection that's healthy for me. That's what I'm doing in my yoga.
I love it. I love it because so often we're like, I can't do yoga because I can't do handstand. Well, guess what? You don't have to be able to do that.
I have recently completely given up trying to do all of those activities. Even doing down facing dog for me can be challenging. I'm not doing it nearly as much as I used to. And it's like a liberation for me. I have had in the past a little bit of an obsession with exercise, and because we're taught by society that health equals this thin, extremely fit person, and that's just not true for me anyways. It really isn't. So recently I have actually given up mountain biking. I'm giving up my road bike. I'm giving up going to the gym. I'm giving up all trying to force my body to be this, I'm using air quotations, fit person, because my body just does not want to do it. It's not interested. So now it's like a huge weight has been lifted off of me, and I could just focus on doing things that make my body feel good. And instead of trying to force it to be something it's not. And it's been very powerful for me in the last few weeks to be doing that. I actually even made a little credo.
Tell us about it. I want to hear.
I have it written down, but maybe I can just say it off the top of my head. It's something along the lines of, I, Helena Spears, shall no longer to do activities that cause me pain or lead me to be stressed. I shall only focus on things that make my body feel good and make my nervous system calm. I shall not feel guilty about it, but rather celebrate my acceptance and my body.
This is amazing. This is so amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us, because how liberating and how powerful to look at like all of the messages that are coming in from society. And I mean everyone. Friends,
Absolutely.
Loved ones, healthcare, magazines, all the messages, and to say, what do I need? What feels really good?
Exactly. And that's part of managing chronic illness is acceptance. that acceptance part is so key. And like I said, I'm a slow learner. I've had pain since I was a teenager. I'm 34 years old. It's only been in the last month that I've really been able to let go of all of those ideas. So it's been 15 years almost of me grasping and clinging and trying to be something I'm not. And the last month or so has just been amazing. I've been way less stressed and anxious, and it's just been wonderful.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so what does your yoga practice look like? You said it was an hour.
Usually I'm doing some somatic movements, and still actually I do some movements that's from that Rodney Yee DVD, just sitting cross-legged, moving side to side, like doing a forward fold over my crossed legs, just stretching out my back from being in sleep, a lot of cat-cows. I've also, of course, have Shelley Prosko's DVD, Yoga for Pelvic Health. And I've, taken the movements that really connected with me from that. So, anterior and posterior pelvic tilts in coordination with the breath on my back. A lot of restorative moves with the legs up the wall. I often have my legs in different positions up the wall. So straight up, or like a wide-legged position, or a cobbler's position, or even like an up-the-wall pigeon, where my one foot is over the other knee, and I just kind of play around with moving my leg around to wherever feels good. And then I have also purchased one of the Muse headbands. Are you aware of these headbands?
No.
They are amazing. They are a little headband that goes around your head, your forehead, and behind your ears, and they give you real-time feedback on your meditation. Yes, I'm seeing your face of like your
I don't
Shannon's
understand.
face looks like her brain just broke. So when you're meditating, it plays music, and when you're unfocused with your mind, it's playing like a rainstorm. And when you are focused, it's like playing birds.
Oh,
So
wow.
it lets you know, I'm not paying attention to what I'm doing. My mind is making a list of everything I need to do today. And it helps you to bring you back to a calm state. And this headband has been so revolutionary for me because I've been able to not only learn how to actually recognize what a calm state is, now I can connect to it on a much easier, quicker method. For instance, in my walk I had yesterday, because my brain was racing, thinking about constipation and my problems with that. And then I just took a time out and I was able to bring my mind away from the negative thoughts into a calm state of mind. And this headband has been so incredibly helpful, and I highly recommend it. Yeah, they're fantastic. So I'm doing about 15 minutes of meditation.
With it in your yoga practice.
In my yoga practice.
How does it work? Does it how does it read
it's a
your
little
thoughts?
EEG of your brain.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It's really quite something.
How much is it?
$300.
It sounds like it was pretty worth it, though.
For me, absolutely. I mean, think about, people who have chronic health problems. Think about what you've spent $300 on. Man, that's like 3 sessions of massage, right? It's totally worth it. Absolutely. I would have even spent $600 on it.
I love that the owners of the company are like, let's up the price of that to $600.
Yeah, and it's cool because when you sign up, they ask you if you want to have your information shared for research. So I said yes. So that's pretty cool.
That's amazing. I love also they'll be like, look at her, she's meditating every single day.
Well, and not quite there every single day. I am missing days here and there. I'm not perfect by any means, and it's cool because it gives you a graph afterwards So because I'm a little bit of a type A personality, it makes me very happy to see things in graph form.
Well, I also like that it's not, so the other side of this is the Fitbit craze, right? Even it came on my new phone, like it'll tell me how many steps I'm walking. And this is something to be like, how much time are you spending being instead of doing? This is pretty powerful.
Absolutely. Yes. And so what the graph shows you, it shows you how many minutes you are in a calm state, and then how many minutes you are in a neutral state, and then how many minutes in an active state. So when I was doing it, I had no idea where the graph would be. But now I don't even need to look at it to know. Like yesterday was just, of my 12 minutes, I had a minute and a half of calm state, and the rest was all neutral and active. But the key for it that they even have in there, it's not, about being in a calm state. It's about just putting energy towards meditating. I'm trying, because of my personality where I always want to like do everything just the best always. I've been surprised at my ability just to appreciate that, yes, I was meditating. No, it wasn't perfect. That's fine. Yeah.
Right. Because you did it. And then you'll just show up the next day.
Exactly. Just showing up. That's what it's about.
Are you ever tempted to use it on other people?
Oh, yes. Yeah, totally. And my mom has done it. Had some friends come over. Yeah. Yeah. My mom is so funny. She's clearly where I get the type A personality. She could not sit still because you have to calibrate it. You have to sit perfectly still and absolutely not moving your jaw or your head, or else it won't track. So it really was a struggle for her to even sit perfectly still for a minute. So it's a really powerful tool. It's been really great to have.
That's amazing. Yeah, I was just thinking of trying it out on my mom. Maybe for Mother's Day, I'll be like, here you go. Yeah. She's also a yoga teacher, but she's like me. Let's do. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's been really great to have something where it's tracking me doing nothing, which sounds so backwards, but it does help me. It's like the Fitbit thing.
Yes.
If it's, if you have an awareness of what you're doing, it helps you to focus a little bit.
Yeah. So, and then do you notice on a day, if you miss your yoga, do you notice some of your pain symptoms spiking?
Oh, absolutely. No question about it. Yeah.
And then do you also work with people? Like, do people reach out to you in that private group or just in general as a yoga teacher?
Not at this time, because I only just graduated my yoga teacher training in the fall. And I also still work. I'm an MRI tech. And so that takes up quite a bit of my time. So I've been doing about 4 days a week doing that. And for me, doing 4 days a week of work that's a lot. It takes a lot of energy for me. So yeah, there's some changes coming up at work where perhaps I might not have the ability to work as much. And I'm going to maybe take that opportunity to try and start to focus on doing yoga for pelvic health. Currently taking Shelley Prosco's online course, Yoga for Pelvic Health. And I have also signed up for in the fall for a yoga and pain science class that's in person at Semper Viva in Vancouver. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that's going to go. I'm not sure where I'm going to do it or what it's going to look like. I've also thought about perhaps doing some Skype teaching. Yeah, because that could be a good way to connect to the IC community. There's a large online community. So I'm excited to see where it goes.
I think it speaks volumes when you have the experience and
Absolutely.
This works for me, and you also have the awareness, it might not work for everyone, but what it feels like to have IC.
What I'd like to be able to teach people is the ability to discover what works for them on their own. So give them the skills to start exploring and learning Because that's what really I think teachers are, right? Teach people how to learn. And yogas can be really overwhelming and a lot of information. And a lot of people have the perception that yoga is, standing on your head or doing all these crazy things. And it really is so much more than that. And I would like to bring those aspects forward.
So say I was looking at teaching in that way, what might that look like? If I was teaching one-on-one online, or if you were teaching one-on-one online to someone, what does it look like when you start to set up so that they're learning how to tap into that?
Honestly, I'm not sure. I'm still learning and exploring that. I'm not sure, because for me, I went to yoga school for a year, once a weekend for a year, to learn how to learn on my own. And I'm not sure how that's going to look. I'm still thinking and learning and exploring about that.
That's good. I think that just having that intention when you go to work with someone one-on-one will be the foundation of that.
Yeah. So the other aspect of it to me that's really important is the spiritual aspect of yoga, because having chronic illness and chronic pain is like a spiritual fire. It brings up all of our stuff. It brings it all up to the surface. Just like, how a lot of women, they talk about, because I don't have children, so they talk about having children and that their children are their teachers. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. The chronic illness is our teacher. So I really feel like the yamas and niyamas, they really lend themselves to understanding and growing through your chronic illness and your chronic pain. It's been really powerful for me to have almost like a little bit of a guidebook of how to deal with my mind and my emotions. And like even just Ahimsa alone, compassion for self. If you don't have compassion for yourself when you have these types of problems, then, it's going to be really hard.
Right.
It's the first place you need to start is compassion towards yourself. Yeah.
It sounds like even you saying, okay, no more mountain biking, no more doing this, no more doing that. These are not the things that I need. That's that piece of compassion for self for you. Would you say that it is?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And the one sutra that I've been reading lately is and I'm going to butcher the Sanskrit, the Abhyasa and Vairagya, I can't even say it, the dedicated practice and remembrance of self, or non-attachment. So the dedicated practice is important because you need to be consistent. If I'm not doing it all the time, then I might as well not do it at all, is kind of how I feel about it, because my body needs a regular input. And the remembrance of self, or the non-attachment, is almost the same thing for me as acceptance. So when there's something that's happened that I'm upset about, it's usually because I'm attached to the idea of doing something. So one thing that used to really upset me a lot is I would make plans for my day. I'm going to do this. I've got my plans. And then my bladder would be raging. Incredibly painful. I can hardly stand up. And so I can't do those things. So I would be so filled with anger all the time. And it's because I was attached to this idea of I'm going to do this today. Whereas now I have a different attitude towards it. Every day I just take every moment as it comes. So if I do manage to accomplish A, B, or C, then that's fantastic. And if not, then that's fine too. That just means I'm going to have some couch time, which sounds great. That means I can catch up on my Netflix shows, read a book, or do some knitting.
What got you to that point? Like, I know that it sounds like you really figured it out, but there must have been some.
I was just really tired of being angry all the time.
Right.
Yeah. I was just awful to my husband. Just awful. Like, he is a saint. I'd just be a rage monster. Like, just no one needs to be around that. And I just thought, I need to find a way to stop being so angry all the time. And I went to the psychologist who has experience with chronic pain, and that was very, very helpful. I also did like a 10-week course with her of like the emotional impact of chronic pain. And that was very powerful as well. And actually, she has a video that basically describes the whole course, and I will send you the link so you can put it up for people. It's about an hour and a half long, her video, and it's really great. And I highly recommend it for anyone who's suffering with, something that's not in their control. It's really hard. So I try to be like a reed in the wind. If the wind is blowing me this way, then I just go that way. And if it goes the other way, then I just go that way. And whatever happens, happens. Which I think is like the ultimate mindfulness, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I mean, you say that this chronic pain has been a gift, and I can really hear it in the way you speak. I mean, our listeners can't see you, but I'm going to ask a really personal question. Some people might be offended. I hope you're not. How old are you?
I'm 34.
Yeah, like I feel like you're young and you have a lot of wisdom.
Well, thank you. That's nice to hear. Like I was saying, like the chronic illness is it's like to borrow a Christian term, it's a refiner's fire, right? It burns away all of the stuff that is holding you back. And in that manner, it's been a blessing for me. There's a lot of suffering that goes on too. Like there's some days where, it's like that meme, I just can't even,
Right.
Yeah, it still happens. It definitely can be hard. Yeah.
If someone is dealing with chronic pain and they're feeling that weight of how difficult it is, and I just can't even, what would you say to them in what you've learned now?
It sounds really cliche, and it's really annoying to hear, but this too shall pass, which is like, I hate that saying. It is the worst. Usually you're going to find a way to get through it. And it might not be what you think it's going to be. This goes back to the attachment thing. Your life isn't going to be what it was before. You need to let go of that. And I feel like that is a huge piece with chronic pain, because our society has taught everyone that chronic pain isn't normal and that you should have a pain-free life. The advertisements, the, promises of health, that our new science-based healthcare, and that's a fallacy. Our life is pain. You're going to have pain in your life. And what you need to do is adapt and change your expectations. And I feel really bad for men, especially when they have chronic pain, because women are expected to be chameleons, we're expected to wear many hats, but men still have this expectation of, and I'm a little bit old school still, so maybe I'm wrong, but they've got to work and bring home the bread and butter. And if they're in pain and they admit it, then they're weak. And I'm losing my train of thought a little bit, but I just feel like the acceptance part is really hard for many people. And you have to let go of your former life and embrace your new life in whatever form that might be. And you have to find a way to learn what that might be for you. So, for me, I was often trying to be really physical, athletic and all that. And now I'm doing things like knitting and doing puzzles. You have to discover new parts of yourself.
Right.
Yeah. That was a really long-winded answer, but it's a little
really
bit of a complicated question.
It is a complicated question, and I appreciate
Yeah.
how you brought in there this idea of letting go. And so I think that's, you put a spin on that I hadn't thought of, that if men are expected to be the tough guy, which we do have that in our society, it's something that they would also have to deal with on top of that.
Absolutely. And through my course that I did, I met some former military members, and that is endemic in that population of just be the tough guy, suck it up, no pain, no gain. And if you learn about neuroscience and pain, that attitude is very toxic. So when your body is in pain, it's trying to tell you something. It's trying to communicate with you. And if you are constantly just pushing through it and overriding, it's going to just speak louder to you. And,
right. It's like, hey, you're not listening.
You're not listening, so I'm going to get louder and louder and louder. And it might not necessarily be pain either. It could be fatigue or itchiness or, these weird symptoms that sometimes people have. And it all goes back to that acceptance. You have to listen to your body and go, oh, my body is telling me, nuh-uh, I do not want to do this right now. And the other part of it is the emotional component. So I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Gabor Mate.
Mm-hmm, I have.
He has a book called When the Body Says No. And that connection between the mind and your body, sometimes it's not a physical problem that is causing the pain, but an emotional or mental problem or a situation that's toxic to your soul. And your body is going to talk to you and say, no, I don't want to do this. So his book, When the Body Says No, is very interesting. It goes over a whole bunch of different scenarios about, personality types and conditions and whatnot. So that relates back to me, like when I was saying my stress is directly related to my pain. So my pain isn't about a biology function. It's about an emotional function for me.
Right.
Yeah. So, yeah, the whole topic is so complex. You need to take into account the biopsychosocial aspect. You need to encounter the whole person. And that's part of our problem with our current healthcare system, is that it does not do that very well at all.
It's so true.
And that's why I love yoga, is because it addresses the body, mind, and spirit, right? It's about creating unity within yourself. And that's why I think it's so powerful for people with chronic pain.
Yeah. What a gift you have to offer to students and to people with this awareness and with your own experience, like still living with it and changing with it, like you said, adapting with it.
Yeah.
If people want to reach out and connect with you, how can they do that?
I think the best way is on Facebook.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't have an open profile, but I am searchable. And or through our Connected Yoga Teacher Podcast Facebook group, I'm on there.
That's how I met you.
Yeah, exactly. Me constantly commenting about pain, and I just can't quite be quiet about it.
It's good. It's really good. It's an important topic that you have a lot to offer for. So
thank you. Yeah, I'm still learning. It's a constant learning experience.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing that with us today. And I just really appreciate your time and your wisdom, and also just being vulnerable and sharing, like, this is where I am and I'm still learning and this is where I'm going. Yeah.
Thank you for having me and talking about pain. And I see especially a grossly underserved population, and I wish I had the time and energy to start a foundation and help women with IC in that manner. But unfortunately, there is no charity for people with IC, no one advocating for us, especially in Canada. And it's quite a marginalized community. So I really appreciate you talking about it, and it means a lot.
Well, I think you will have a big impact just with people listening to the podcast, just getting that awareness out there. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Also, you had mentioned that Facebook group, and it's a private group.
It's a secret group.
It's a secret.
So I'm not sure if the ladies would be comfortable with a whole bunch of people joining. It's quite a private group, and it's small, and that's kind of what makes it work.
Yeah.
But if anyone is interested in contacting me, we could start a whole other group.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you so much, Helena. It is great to be able to refer students to Helena who are dealing with interstitial cystitis because she works with them both in person and virtually. Helena sent along some of the links for things that she spoke about in today's episode. All of those are in the show notes if you go to theconnectedyogateacher.com/77. Also, the big exciting giveaway is there. Remember how Helena was telling us about the Muse headband that she uses for meditation? I gave Muse a call. Yep, I just went to their website and called them. That's kind of my style ahead of emailing sometimes. I told them about this interview with Helena, told them about her story, and asked if they would be interested in giving a Muse headband to one of our listeners. And they said yes. And so you can now enter the draw to win. You simply go to the show notes. So that's again, theconnectedyogateacher.com/77, and leave a comment about this episode. And we will do a draw for one lucky winner. And we will send you a note from me along with the headband. We'll mail it to you. Also on the show notes page, you're going to find links to Helena's website. She talked about the Pelvic Health podcast. We'll put a link to that. Shelley Prosco's stuff. Wow, Shelley has some amazing stuff in terms of pelvic health. You guys know that. The Muse headband, I'll definitely add a link to their website. Also, Helena had talked about a couple of trainings, and so we've put links to those there. And she spoke about a book by Gabor Mate, which I find that this is a really cool thing. Gabor actually works with my very first yoga teacher, Satdaram Kaur. If you're listening, hello. So you can actually read Gabor Mate's book online, just the first chapter, if you want to check that out to see if that might be something that you're interested in. That book is When the Body Says No. If you would like to get together in person with me, I'm offering a 2-day, 20-hour yoga teacher training, all specific to yoga for pelvic health. That's September 22nd and 23rd, 2018 in Meaford, Ontario. This is 20 hours of in-person training, a very comprehensive manual, information, yoga flows, and you'll go home feeling very ready to teach either one-on-one with people or a 12-week series, or to add that into your yoga classes. Go to theconnectedyogateacher.com, look for trainings and events for more information. And for those of you who can't make the in-person training, I know I've been hearing from a lot of you asking me the difference between the in-person and the 8-hour. The 8-hour will give you the foundation. What it is missing is that time to ask questions in real time and time to practice on each other as a group, practice on different bodies, teach it, form more questions. So that's what we get with the in-person, but the 8-hour has a lot of great information. Also, there's an option to work with me one-on-one with a consultation call. So we can go many ways with that. Most of you call me and want help with your yoga business, but if you feel like you want to have a one-on-one call and go through some of the pelvic health topics, I am happy to do that as well. So you'll go to theconnectedyogateacher.com and look for the Work with Shannon at the top. If you have enjoyed today's episode, it would be so great if you would press pause right now and leave us a review on iTunes. If you're not sure how to do that, go to the show notes page. There's a really easy button there. Go to theconnectedyogateacher.com/77, or you can look for our Facebook page and leave a review there. I want to read out a couple of reviews. One is from Rian. Rian and I actually got to meet at the Accessible Yoga Conference. She said, "I'd like to express how grateful I am to have come across your podcast and wealth of information you work to create for the yoga community. I began listening to you as I started my 10-month, 200-hour yoga teacher training and always found comfort in the many questions I had while listening to your podcast. Also, because of your show, I've decided to join the Accessible Yoga Conference in June, and I am incredibly excited to learn more about different populations. Hope to see you there. Thank you for doing what you do and building my confidence to jump into the yoga teaching world when I graduate in June." So I am really curious, Rian, how is it going since we saw each other at the Accessible Yoga Conference? And how's it going since you graduated from yoga teacher training? Also, thanks to Jenny for leaving a review on Facebook. Jenny says, "A huge thank you to Shannon for all of your wisdom and advice during our consultation call this morning. It was wonderful to finally meet you. I can't wait to put my action items into practice. Fellow yoga teachers, if you've considered working with Shannon one-on-one, I highly recommend it." So Jenny, I want to hear from you and hear how things are going now as well. How are your action items? I know it can be a little tricky in the summer for me. My trick here with this is just to focus on one thing. So today I knew that I needed to get this podcast out and ready to you. Let's continue the conversation. Connected Yoga Teachers over in the Facebook group is a great place to do that, or you can send me an email from our website. Today's episode has been made possible because of our fantastic team. Thank you to Laura, Samantha, and Suzanne. Okay, Connected Yoga Teachers, what do you want to connect to this week? Maybe you are feeling like you want to connect to self, your yoga practice, or to your community. Find something that you can connect to that brings you joy so that you can fill up and share your yoga. Namaste. Take care, Connected Yoga Teachers.